Guys, here we are at the Basel Fair 2019 edition, and here with Thierry Stern, the president and CEO, and the man behind Patek Philippe. And it's such a pleasure to be here. Suzanne, I'm
Thank you very much.
Thrilled, yes?
Exactly. This is the big one, guys, so pay attention, open your ears, and listen up sharp.
So I think the first question I really like to ask you is, last year it was, all these rumors were swirling around a potential sale of the most mythical brand in watchmaking, Patek Philippe. And, as soon as I heard this, I knew, I was like, I didn't believe it for a second. But perhaps I can ask you a little bit about that.
No, it's like this. It's over 20 years. Every year there's a rumor that Patek Philippe it's for sale. It's absolutely not true. I just feel sorry because this year it was. It came out from a very strong, I would say, name in the press industry.
Right.
And this is really, I think, a little bit stupid.
Yes, correct.
One phone call and everything was solved. But no, let me tell you, Patek Philippe is not for sale. It will never be, and that's simply something that some people try to maybe make me confused or confuse the retailers, the final client about it. But no. We are not for sale. It's a family business, and it's going to stay a family business.
Incredible. And incidentally, I think that sometimes people don't understand how much of incredible influence the Stern family has had in Patek Philippe. It is basically the Stern family that has created the brand that you know today. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's think back to 1941, which I think is one of the greatest years in watchmaking. Simultaneously, 1518 and 1526 come out. First Perpetual calendar Chronograph ever made in series, first Perpetual calendar ever made in series. And it's such a demonstration because the world was amid turmoil, right? In 1941, you're still in the Second World War. I mean, from the perspective of, I know, of your ancestors, why do you think it was so important for them to bring such creativity?
Well, I think like for every business, you need to evolve, and to evolve, you need to be creative, and that's exactly what we do still today. Mm-hmm. Every year, you have to come with new items in terms of design, new items in terms also of movements. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it was exactly, I would say, the same spirit. To raise up again, you have bring something new, and when the times are becoming more difficult, this is where you really need to bring out all your skills or your passion to just find the final product who will be really the hit of the year.
That's true.
And that's how we do it at Patek every time.
Amazing.
That's an amazing statement. You can't put a timeline on creativity, guys. It comes when it's time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also feel that that sometimes, like a Patek watch when it's launched, there should be all these cliff notes that are related to it as well to explain exactly what the inspiration is. So, for example,
annotations.
the 5320, which is one of my favorite watches, which is the beautiful Perpetual calendar. Actually, it has the hands, for example, pay a little sort of homage to the 1591 from the 40s, which there were only two of. There was a steel one that was owned by a Maharaja, and there's a gold one, which I don't know who owns that one. Do you own it?
Maybe not.
But I like how on the 5172, which is the new chronograph for this year, there's a little sort of similarity in terms of that spirit in the hands.
Yes, you're right. But it also depends on the style, on the design, that in the mood that I have it actually. And the idea, to be frank, for the 53-2020 was to find a new perpetual calendar.
Right.
And I was talking with my dad about it, and he said, well, we really need something new. And I said, okay, let me find out something. I had in my mind since quite a long time already to do something more like vintage.
Right.
And personally, I love the color of the dial.
I love it too.
The dial are very nice, easy to wear, easy to read. And the main topics for this new watch, for example, was to be able to read it very easily.
Correct.
And that's exactly what you say with those hands. They are very easy to read. The date also is very easy to read. So sometimes at Patek, it's we have to bring something new, but who is simple.
Of course.
And that's maybe the most difficult part to realize.
I can only imagine.
And that's what we did with this watch.
And that's something to emphasize as well, that you talk about the readability, and even though the case is in a very modest size and very classic proportions, you would say, readability is still paramount. So it's not true, guys, that small watches are hard to read. There's an example, living example right here. Have a look.
Well, the other cool thing about that watch also is it's a center second watch as well for a Perpetual calendar, and the 1591 was the first center seconds Perpetual calendar ever made in history. The other thing that I love about this watch, and Thierry, may I say, I think you are the master of lugs. I love the triple step lugs on this, and I to this day I still think the 5970 has the sexiest and most beautiful lugs of any watch ever. And incidentally, I think that's the greatest watch of all time.
No.
Yeah, very architectural.
Exactly.
I think both, they should take my place.
No. I've just written a big article about it, but I know that was your sort of first overture into becoming the head of Patek. But that watch, which pays tribute to the 2499 and also the first series of the the 2499 first series, and then the 1518 as well.
was
tachymeter and the
it's
score
true. It was a difficult watch to
Yes.
realize at the time. It took me about 2 years to design it, which is very long.
Is it true that at one point you were thinking about putting a loop system on the day and the month?
I tried, but to be frank, it was not efficient. In terms of design, that's something you can never really plan in advance. If you're a watch lover, there's no marketing brief, there is no research who will help you. At once you have to dream about it, maybe to talk inside your family about your idea, and then you come and you just try to make it. First with a drawing, then with a prototype. That's something really that you cannot prepare. This is why Patek Philippe should remain as a family business, because you do it with passion and not just with a marketing brief.
Exactly.
And it comes with expertise, not through computers,
Of
not
course,
through...
yeah.
Can I ask you a question? I've always wondered, so when you went from the CH27 to the CH29, which is your in-house movement, from a technical perspective, this movement is incredible. It's 28.8. It's precise jumping minute counter. It's got a profile for the T, so when the meshing engaged between the drive wheel and the chronograph wheel is very smooth. I always wanted to ask you, why is it the subdials are placed below the sort of center line? Was that an aesthetic decision, or was it a functional?
No, it was a functional decision, to be
Right.
frank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Understood.
No, it is a beautiful chronograph, by the way, and one of the most excellent in-house chronographs we've seen from any watch company all over the world. In the last, when was it, 2010? I think it was launched in 2010.
Well, in particular in the split-second version as well, because in the old CH27, the octopus was
The octopus
unidirectional,
arm.
and it had to overcome the force of the split-second clamp. And then the new one, it's bidirectional,
which is so much more. It's so much more in terms of mechanism. It's a smarter mechanism. It's more efficient, and we love that.
Okay.
It's real stress.
So let's get back to new watches.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about this amazing pilot's alarm travel watch that we saw that's rendered in platinum, if I'm not mistaken?
No, well, the idea, I always wanted to have a nice alarm watch, to be frank, but it's not that easy to realize. The first thing was to find the right sound. This is very difficult. And I knew since the beginning that for Patek to have the right sound, that the meaning was to go for the minute repeater. And that meant also an expensive watch. So I was always a little bit worried about that, because should I do a minute repeater as an alarm who would be with a very high price, because that's the price to pay for such a movement who has over 500 components inside. The question was difficult for me to answer. Then I say, well, maybe it's time to do it now. Let's try it. I will take the risk, knowing that you have a lot of those alarm watch on the market they don't have the same price, I know that, but mine has really the particularity maybe to have a real hammer, a real gong like the minute repeater. Secondly was the design, who was not easy. What should I do? Should I stay more traditional, or should I go a bit further? We talked quite a while, we had a few prototypes, simple one, traditional, more maybe younger style, and then when I saw the success of the pilot, I said, well, we should try with the pilot. The size was good, the idea to have the 4 crowns like this seems to be quite interesting, and when I saw the first drawing, I said, well, there's something to do with it. So I took the risk, yes, to bring out something with a little bit more younger than older, and
which is great.
I think that for people, we all love to look younger. So I say, well, let's take the risk, let's bring out something.
Hands up, like
we do.
So that's why I choose to have the pilot design. Why platinum? Well, because as it's so complicated to realize, there were not a lot of them also that I could produce. And at this level, I thought it was a good idea to have a platinum case for a rare watch.
Very cool.
Very cool. It just seems like the right decision at this moment, because who could have foreseen that the pilot's watches from Patek Philippe? When it first launched, it was kind of a bit of a gamble at the same time, even though you did have those pieces in your heritage, but people weren't really aware of that. And now, look at the status that it has, especially amongst those people who know what Patek is about, people who are collectors, genuine appreciators of the brand.
So I've got the 5131 on my wrist, which is one of my favorite watches.
Yeah, lucky man.
I'm lucky to be allocated it. So someone very kind did me this great favor, and it's a cloisonné enamel watch. It's been extrapolated on so many different beautiful versions. The one with the North Pole mat was very cool last year. Shout out to Shari, I know that's your watch. So Tell me a little bit about the new 5231 that you've launched. I know it's like 1 mm thinner, smaller, and slightly thinner as well, but the case is actually quite a different case.
Well, yeah, because you have to evolve a little bit. Also, when you're using such a piece with such a beautiful enameled dial, this will be typically something where I will not go too far like a pilot watch on it. You know, when you are using a beautiful enamel like this, cloisonné, you should stay more classical. And the idea was really just to have a relook, how do you say, a relooking of the case without bringing something totally new. Because I think it's really, it would be a mistake to go too far on one side. And the courage was maybe to bring it on the yellow gold version, because today yellow gold does represent maybe 5 to 10%, you know, of the whole, I would say, sales that of the collection.
Right.
But for me, enamel with yellow gold goes so well.
Oh, yeah,
and
totally agree.
It's a classic partnership.
It's a classical one, exactly. So that's why if you look at the case, you should not see a major difference, except it looks a little bit more thinner today, maybe. And that's what I like also with the case.
And it's a really confident step as well. I remember one of the things that you told us years and years ago, which I've always remembered, which you said that if you can make a watch look good in yellow gold, you can make it look good in anything.
I know, exactly. You're
and
totally
words
right.
of wisdom, you know?
I was actually offered the choice between this and the white gold one as well. I intentionally picked the yellow gold because I think that with the warmth of the cloisonné enamel.
For me, it's the nicest one, to be frank.
I totally
That's
agree.
what I always preferred, and to be frank, that's it's my own choice, but it's also, we discussed that a lot in the family, and we all agree about that.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about the Calatrava with the weeks of the year? Is this for people who are doing financial planning, or?
No, well, depend. It could be also, but my idea, you know, I have been doing a lot of work at home, and everybody was talking always by weeks. And every time I was looking at my phone saying, well, I have no idea which weeks is that one. So that's where the idea first came from. And then when I look at it, I say, well, this could be maybe something quite interesting, as there's not a lot of watches on the market who are using this type of information.
Correct. It's
not a complicated one to imagine, because it's already there. But nobody really had an idea to mix all of them on one dial like this. The main maybe purpose was to see how should we present the date, the month, you know, the week. And the way how we present it on the dial, I think is quite interesting, because it shows you a very full dial of information, but on the other way, I think it's quite pure, the way how it looks like. And the idea to make it like if you were writing on a dial by yourself.
That's lovely.
That's something also this was risky in one sense, but since the beginning I said this is what I would like to have, so let's do it, let's try it. To be frank, internally there was like half people not agreed, the other half were like so, but you do have to take some risks sometimes. So this is a watch where, yes, I decided to take a risk in terms of design, presentation. The movement itself, I don't think it's a risk, because it's a great movement, but the face of the watch certainly was a risk. I can see already now that it will be well received, and I'm happy about that, because you know, when you take a risk, you never know. Now it's just the beginning of the fair, but I can feel it already.
Amazing.
I think it's amazing that we're sitting here with you from Patek Philippe talking about taking risks, and that's really amazing. And that you're not sitting on your laurels, you know, resting on what you've done, but taking risks, because if you don't take risks, you don't get to new places.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, one of those great examples would be the annual calendar, you know, that you've just launched in the regulator format in the new material, because that has both the Spiromax and the Pulsarmax as well. And I think it was, you know, people may have perceived it as a risk to go into the alternate materials of silicon initially.
At the beginning, yes, because that was the first watch to receive the Pulsarmax at the time, you know. Well, the annual calendar, that's different. We launched it in '96, but for me the regulator is quite interesting, because yes, that was the first watch of a new era of escapements. And that's why I like it. I think the rose gold version is quite nice to wear with this black dial. It's pretty cool, yes. It's maybe not easy for somebody who is not used to it to read the time on it. You know, that's I must be also quite clear about it. It's a different way to read the time, but it's so nice and so pure that that's really for somebody who like watch watches, I think yes, that's a must to have.
Absolutely. There's a beautiful logic in terms of how
Yeah.
you read the display. And I think another watch that demonstrates this great sort of ability to read information so clearly is the new Nautilus annual calendar with the blue dial this time, which is one of my
that's,
favorite references.
Yeah, of course. I know today Nautilus is it's really important, but the blue dial is part of the DNA of the
Absolutely.
Nautilus. So to be frank, for me, at the beginning I wasn't agreed to launch it because I think we have too many of the Nautilus.
Right.
But
Never too many Nautilus.
yes, there are too many. If I was really, maybe I should have stopped the Nautilus a few years ago. But
Please don't.
that's but it's a
People in
nice
China
watch.
will kill themselves.
I know.
Heart attacks
You
happening
know,
all over the world right
the
now.
Nautilus important. Of course, it is important, but it's just one watch,
Right.
part of the collection, you know. And
But it's nice also that it now has the annual calendar, which is
of
something your
course,
dad created
it's
as
very
well.
nice.
You know?
There are many possibilities that you can do, but at once you have also to be very careful not to be monoproduct.
Of course.
And that's very important, really, you know. And I don't want to see that happening with Patek. I think that yes, if you look at our wrist, we have beautiful other Patek watches.
Absolutely.
So Nautilus is one of them. Yes, I agree. Cool. But
Actually, that if you don't mind my asking, you know, one of the things that I think is utterly unique about Patek is the breadth of people that it appeals to, right? And I think that there's a lot of watches, like for example, Richard Mille appeals to a Richard Mille guy, you know, AP appeals to an AP guy. But if you look at the collectors of Patek, you know, I'll see guys like rappers, you know, athlete, NBA guys,
It's the gamut.
but you know, captains of industry, but also you know, very conservative businessmen. What do you think is the magic of the universal appeal of Patek?
I think it's quality. All those people, they know that we are really focusing on the beauty and quality. And of course, it is also a business, but that doesn't mean anything for me in one sense. You know,
Of course.
we believe in what we do. We have been doing it for many years. So people who buy those watches, I think when they buy a Patek, they know that there's a lot of work behind, and there is also a lot of passion, and that's what drive all those people. I think it can be, like you say, rappers or a captain of industry. They all are doing something by passion, and they would do it with the best that they can.
Which goes
That's
back to you being
exactly
a
what
family-owned
was
company
Patek.
as well, right?
Yes, also, but even if it's not a family-owned company, you can be someone working in a company and do exactly the same. You know,
Right.
if you enjoy what you do, I mean, if you do it well, never give up. That's what I say. You know, never try. Never say I can't if you didn't try it.
I think it's extraordinary. I think that Harvard should do a case study on how you guys expressed the quality and authenticity of your brand to the Chinese market, right? Because you didn't go in there with massive ad campaigns. You didn't go in there with multiple points of sale. You opened up one in Beijing and one in Shanghai, and you basically created the story. You created a possibility for people to come and see the reality of what Patek is, right? And I think because of that, you now have this massive global alignment where across the world, not just across different demographics of professions, but across the world, everyone understands that Patek is the best, right?
Well, I think it's fantastic, but I should still stay down on Earth. You know, that's also very important.
Right.
I'm just there for a few years. I'm happy that it's working like that. I'm happy. I think yes, we made some choices in China, but some in other places also. But it's just for a few years, then I will be gone. The next one will have to do the same, you know. And,
Don't say that.
no, but,
A lot of years left.
Come on.
Okay, Telly, if you don't
it's
mind my asking.
important to educate also the future,
Of course.
and there is a future for Patek. That's what I like.
Absolutely. If you don't mind my asking, maybe the last two questions, because I know you're short on time. First, one thing of the byproduct of your extraordinary success, however, is that your watches on the aftermarket are going, or secondary market, are going for massive premiums, right? Is there something you can do to combat this, or do you want to combat this, or
You cannot really combat that. It's part of the success in one sense.
True.
So we should be proud about it. Now, yes, of course, we know that the second-hand market is a very important one. Some people are talking about 5 billion, 10 billion. So I don't know. But what I know is that when I saw those watches, it means that we did a good job because they're still there, they're still working,
Right.
and that's what really drives me. You know, it's not the fact that one of them will take suddenly a stratospheric price, whatever. For me, what I like is to see that, well, the case is still nice, the movements still work, you know, the dial is still perfect. That's what I like, you know, that
Oh,
means that we
that's
did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that sense of pride. You've made something that
Yeah.
lasts.
Last question, green,
Sure.
Aquanaut.
But why not?
There you go.
Perfect reply. Perfect response. Why not? 2 words, straight to the point.
Excellent. Thierry, thank you so much for
Right,
joining us. It's
welcome.
an absolute pleasure.
As always.
And as long as you're here at Basel Fair, I will come to Basel Fair. But the moment you're not, I won't. So
That's exactly.
Not even for the sausages?
not even.
Yeah.
It's not compelling enough. Thank you so much, Thierry.
Thank you
Lovely
very
to see
much. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.